Anyway, thanks for coming. I think we're getting there. We've tried to start the tradition about, this is the fourth one. This year, I think there are 275 people registered to come. That was yesterday. I don't know how many phone calls I got and Pat got today. So we got the usual, but we figured it all out. So the tradition's building. That's what's important. We get to come and tell the same old stories, but we do it together. It doesn't really matter who's getting inducted. We love them all. So we're here to tell stories, see old friends, and thank some people who have really contributed a lot to the bedrock of the foundation of lacrosse in this area. So it's been about 15 or 20 years now, depending on when you decided it started, with about a half a dozen high schools, I guess, playing lacrosse. And now we're up to over 15,000 people in the metropolitan area, which goes from southern Maryland to Montgomery County to northwest Virginia, D.C., and Fairfax County. So it's huge and still growing. As everybody knows, I guess lacrosse is the largest, the fastest growing sport percentage-wise in the country, and we're very reflective of it. So I know it's hot in here. A couple of people I want to thank and introduce. First of all, we have some guests who came all the way down. Steve Stenderson, his wife Garvey, are around here somewhere. Steve's the executive director of U.S. Josh and Jody Christian. Where do I see Josh? There he is. Director of Museum Services and Administrator of the National Hall of Fame. Susan coaches. Did I find Susan? I missed her earlier. Susan here, Steve? Didn't make, okay. Susan, Director of Development. I did see Beth Reisinger, Director. Special thanks to Pat McCardle, who isn't here, had to leave, and Pat Dillon, who's right over here, the chairs of the selection committee. And then special thanks to the patrons who, for 50 bucks, this is the best deal in the world, right? And the only way we can do it is because of the great support of the patrons, and there's some great ads in there. And then where's my buddy Bob Johnston? He's around here somewhere. Anyway, Bob contributes all the beer and wine for this event. And then the other group I like is the Aschenbach family sitting in the back. Everybody will get a DVD of the ceremonies tonight. Tonight, as I said, this is the biggest one we've ever had, 275 people. So you either got to get a bigger room or more beer. I haven't figured out one of these. So I'm not going to bore you with this because it's hot, but there's tons of things going on to build up the coaching and the refereeing and the umpiring, to keep up with that growth that's just going through the roof on us. But as evidenced by the size of the people here and the commitment. So we're here to honor some people who are responsible for laying the foundation for what's happening with lacrosse, and they've given a lot to lacrosse, and we're very thankful and humble to be able to give a little bit back to them. So let's get started on that. Our first inductee is Bill Bayfield. They're going to be introduced by Heather Weidel. Let me tell you a little bit about Heather. Heather is the reason Bill is here. She's the reason we're all here to honor Bill. Without her, probably nothing would have happened. So, Heather and the family moved to Virginia in 1986, and Bill started the Robinson High School Girls Lacrosse Club. Heather was on that first team in 1987, is that right? 1990, it became a varsity sport at Robinson and many other of the Fairfax County high schools. After that successful career, she went on to play at Spreebriar and continued to umpire and coach after that, both here in Virginia and where she resides now in Jacksonville, Florida.
Good evening. This is wonderful. First of all, thank you very much. And let me start by saying I played a number of sports growing up. I started, I think, when I was about 5 or 6 with baseball, and my father was the coach. And he would hit one puck fly to us after another, trying to help us learn how to catch. And then I took on track, and then soccer, and gymnastics, and field hockey. And my father supported me through absolutely anything I wanted to do, any sport I wanted to play. He was always there cheering me on. And then we moved to Virginia. And I came home from school one day and told my parents that I wanted to play lacrosse. And the monster was born. My father supported me in everything and loved all of my athletics, but I know that lacrosse was the love of his life and still is. In my high school and college athletic career, my father, I think, may have missed 10 events of everything I played. And he was a fixture on every sideline. Everyone knew him. He would send me to any camp I ever wanted to go to. He loved it and still loves it if I'll ask him to go and play some catch in the yard. And I suppose you can expect this from your own father, but what's special about my father is the support he gave to so many other girls. He coached hundreds of girls, many of whom have become very good, successful lacrosse players. He refereed hundreds of games, and I think, Pat would know the answer to this, but I think that he was the oldest man to offer his district rating. So there are probably a number of reasons why he's eligible to be honored here tonight. But I think the most important is the support he gave and the genuine love for the game that he instilled in so many young women. I am very proud and very honored to introduce my dad, Bill.
Thank you all very much. If I get through this without tears and so on, it's going to be a unique moment. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to the rest of my family. There's Heidi Chikaris down here, but if she hadn't stolen a cross stick in camp school, then Heather wouldn't have had one to start with. Her husband, Tom, and I want to thank him for all, he's in the Navy, a lieutenant up in, Tom is a lieutenant in our Navy, just finishing up a tour of duty up in Newport and headed down for Norfolk. And I want to thank Tom and all of our service people for everything they do to protect this great nation. And then my wife, Weta, and Weta is really the one that got me into it. I was over in someplace overseas with IBM doing my job, and they formed the Robinson team, and she was elected president of the girls club, and she said she would only do it if I would be her water boy and go-getter. So she got me involved, and that was that. Now, I've noticed as I go on in time that I have a hard time remembering where I put these. But what I don't have a hard time with is remembering lacrosse things. And I remember things going back in the past, like in '91 when we took our undefeated Robinson team that had gone 3 straight years and never lost it to anybody in Northern Virginia, and we took them down the road to Alexandria to play a little private school called St. Agnes. And all of the papers were talking about what a big thing this was. And in truth it was. And for 5 minutes it was a great game. I'm telling you, 5 minutes into the game and it was 3-3. And Kathy calls timeout. And I've always wondered what she said. I think they ended up beating us 18-5. And by the end of the game, I'm sure she had them all playing weak side and 3 passes before you shoot or whatever. I can remember reffing with my daughter Heather, and Weta was up in the stands, and they announced us, and we had a great AD. And without Olin Fall, we would not have had lacrosse at Robinson. But the guy was sensational. And I don't know if he's still around in the area, but I tell you, the man was wonderful.
Then one day we got a call and Pat Dillon says, hey, look, we got to get more refs. So she came across and gave us a reffing clinic, and a bunch of us went to it. And that's when I started reffing. Now let me tell you, if you're going to have some people guide you in reffing, Pat Dillon and Susie Ganzmuller, can you do any better? No. I was so lucky to have them as my teachers, gurus, whatever. And then one day I started coaching. And in that first year, I was lucky enough to take a team, asked to be taken to take a team down to the Virginia Commonwealth Games. And Kathy Jenkins asked if she could help. And then, what do you say? You say, oh God, please. And we sit on the sidelines, and Kathy would be there, and she'd say, well, do you see that? And you see how this player's moving and so on? And I'm just sitting there, yeah, I had no idea. All I did was organize. But there were some marvelous players. And so I got so much from Kathy. And then, actually, when I moved down to Hilton Head, I met up in March down there with a lady who would come down and help in those camps, named Feffy Barnhill. And, if you're going to get instruction on how to coach the game, I'd say that was about as good as it can get. Okay, so I've been lucky there. And then with the players, those first teams that we were coaching, I was lucky enough to have a girl named Johanna Buckles on my team at BRYC, and she went on for a great career at Woodson and then at James Madison, and I understand that she's now on the U.S. developmental team. Okay, so what an honor and a wonderful thing to watch Johanna and to see what she's done. And then, as part of the youth program and some of the girls that Kathy brought into our team when we went down to the Commonwealth Games, she had a little 7th grader that she wanted to play, and she said, well, she's going to be good someday, Bill. And that girl's name was Kristen Zimmer, and Kristen is captain in the Dartmouth team this year. And there was another little 6th grader that she brought along named Kathleen Miller, right? Well, gee whiz, we all know what Kathleen's done, and I think she's on the developmental team now. And on the team, we took 20 girls up to Baltimore in '98 for the World Youth Festival. Of those 20 girls, I think 12 of them went on to play D1 lacrosse. And among those, Kathleen, of course, is one of those. Kristen was on that team. Julie Hauser was on that team, and she's playing down in Virginia, I believe. Tyler Leachman was on that team. And Tyler's the one girl that I can still watch, because down in Savannah, they don't cover lacrosse. But we do cover ACC athletics. So I get to see the ACC games at the end of the season, and I've been able to see Tyler do that. Now, it's one thing to take these really fine athletes, and yeah, you may have something to do with it, but they're great athletes, and if they apply themselves, they're going to be good. But I had this little girl walk on the field the first year at the BRYC who had Coke bottle eyeglasses and maybe couldn't outrun a turtle. And so we talked to her and we said, look, you've got to learn the skills. If you can learn to pass and catch, and particularly to cradle, you can play this game anywhere. And this little kid worked so hard. And the second year, she started for us at second home, and she played very well. And the good girls learned that, hey, this kid can pass and catch, and she can control the ball. And this girl went on to play 4 years of high school lacrosse here. Now, I don't think she ever went on after that, but she played 4 years of high school, and I look back on that and I say, what a triumph. That was truly, that's what really gets to a coach, I think, that you can take your people that far. And then, they're all the memories I have of Heather. And here's what I can't get through. I love watching her play, and I love reffing with her. Thank you all very much.
Okay, next up, Len Casalino is our next inductee.
Yeah!
Bissett is going to present Len. Joe's been around this lacrosse his whole life. How he survived Lenny and Erna. I don't have any idea, but he did. Joe continues to be and is a great high school coach. He was at Jefferson here in Virginia and has now moved down to Northern High School and taken over that program. And great things are already starting to happen down there. He's a frequent speaker at many of our clinics, an excellent coach, a guy that I go to his sessions, and I learn something every time I go there. I just admire his presentation techniques and his knowledge and skill of the game. All right, I like that. So when we bring up Joe Bissett to introduce his dad, Len Casalino.
First of all, if I could, I'd like to have all of Lenny's players who made it here tonight stand up for just a moment, please. Live with and were the son of that inductee. And you're right, Homer, I don't know how I survived it yet. But that is the case with my relationship with my dad, Lenny Casalino. I still remember vividly the day in 1986 when I came home from school and announced I had nominated him to coach a team with no equipment, no field, a handful of players in school that didn't want him. From our first practice with 10 players on a rain-covered tennis court, Lenny's 2 decades of leadership have changed the landscape of lacrosse in the metro area. Lenny and Erna, whose name has to be right alongside him on any award that it receives, led the way in building the Tri-County Lacrosse League, the Smile Youth League, and finally the boys and girls high school programs that make up Southern Maryland lacrosse. But with Lenny, kids were always first, and their love for him and devotion for him years later is that proof. There are a lot of great stories I could tell. His first All-American, who's here, would call regularly at 2 a.m. just to say hello. Or Kelly Award winner sleeping on Lenny's front porch swing set just because it's the safest place he could find. Or Lenny scaring the bejesus out of one of his players as he drove full speed through the Beltway median strip on his way to St. John's for an afternoon lacrosse game. Hardy played midfield for Lenny on his unbeaten teams of 1990 and 1991. Wasn't a goal scorer or an award winner, just one of those heart and soul midfielders that you can't live without. After graduation, Jay went into the Army and sent Lenny and Erna a letter just to say hello. When Jay reflected on where his life was going before joining Calvert Lacrosse Club, his words were ominous. Lenny and Erna, thank you. Without you and Calvert Lacrosse Club, I don't even know if I'd be alive today. Although less dramatically, Jay's sentiments were echoed by numerous players who used avenues from college essays, to personal letters, to weddings, to say thank you to their second set of parents. Today I'm honored to add to those sentiments. Lenny, Dad, thank you for introducing me to a sport and building a family of teammates and friends that will always be part of me. Congratulations on an honor that couldn't be more deserved.
Out of the 275 people, 269 are right. I apologize, home, and the rest of the inductees and everyone. That's my family, my friends. Some are invited, some just show up. I don't know if they paid. Anyway, thank you, Homer, the chapter. I want to thank my start right now. But in truth, I really am touched what lacrosse has done for me, how it affected my life, how it affected my family, how it affects my community. Played in high school on Long Island, played at the University of Maryland. many of you were born. Played 15 years in the United States Club Lacrosse League. Coached high school, coached youth, coached club, coached some girls, and that was an experience. Woo. I'm a referee with Homer and the rest of the gentlemen. Was part of the wonderful creation of a high school league. Right. And I was really proud of that. So my thoughts, as I think back now, is that this is a wonderful award. However, it belongs to us. Honor them. Members of this chapter I've known since its creation. You keep us together in a cohesive group so that our voices can be heard on a much larger scale and that you can reach out to new areas as our sport grows. To the referees, the men and the women, many of you are here tonight. You are so unappreciated. You provide a crucial yet thankless job. Without you, the game doesn't exist. Okay, so some of you who used to rep my games when I coached with that Long Island accent, being small, you know, in the Napoleon complex, probably mumbling right now under your breath, that damn liar. Didn't say those things many years ago, but I'm saying them now. The commissioners of Smiler, our youth group. Many of you are here tonight. Tim Sinclair, Bob Powell, Dave Hafer, I think he's overseas, Carolyn Fink, many of you, all the commissioners. If there's anything I'm most proud of, besides my family, is our youth group. We have 15 youth organizations going or involving 5 counties, from Frederick County to St. Mary's County. These commissioners and the people within their organizations, you work so hard for the organizations. Your coaches are wonderful. You touch the lives of hundreds of children. You are extraordinary in the efforts you put for your groups in your area. Your efforts are enormous. My Calvert Lacrosse Club family, coaches, assistants, and parents, you make it fun and exciting. Your commitment to the program and to the children is never ending. You make it better each year. And with due respect to college coaches and high school coaches, it's really you, the youth coach, that are responsible for planting in these young children that seed of passion for the love of this game that will grow in them and last a lifetime. Mike Hyland, put you on the spot, don't you? You do so much for our club. You coach our peewees, midgets, youth throughout the year. You are a college referee. You came here after reffing the Maryland-Delaware game. You represent Southern Maryland on the board of the chapter. You coach my grandson. You were the referee when I coached my last high school varsity game. But we were just beginning a friendship that I treasure enormously. High school players. Despite our unknown beginnings for 20 years, you kept us alive. You fought so long, so hard for lacrosse in Southern Maryland. During a time when rural Calvert County had only 20,000 residents, and most of the land was in farms. And the honor you gave to it then and still give to it now, as many of you are now high school head coaches and are giving back to the next generation of lacrosse players. It's really funny, but I've been a trial lawyer for 32 years, but my profession is not my passion. My passion is and has always been this game and the kids that play it. Old Italians from New York have an in and not so honorable profession. Have a saying, La Cosa Nostra. What it really means is this thing of ours. For many of us here tonight, it's this thing of ours that gives us life, gives us enjoyment and satisfaction. It provides us comfort in sad times, provides us an escape from the daily stresses of life, gives us a reason to be proud, permits us to feel good about what we do. It allows us to reflect on fond memories of the past and present. It gives us lifelong friendships. Permit me to share a few. My wife receives Mother's Day cards from many of our former players. Like Joe said, players calling in the middle of the night from college, just wanting to talk. A former player calling me on a cell phone from the locker room after just winning a national championship game. And that boy's here tonight. Watching your grandson holding a lacrosse stick before he could walk. He's here tonight. Watching your son coach his high school team and seeing how he has accomplished more in his first few years than I could ever accomplish in my lifetime. Having many of my former players head coaching high school teams, and particularly in Calvert County. Jonathan Montez, Vic Yellow, and Joe Bissett. All here tonight, giving back to these children what they got from the sport. Playing for a Grandmasters team called Mr. Bow, where these men never get old. Drink a lot, but never get old. National Bow from the Baltimore people. In any event, many of these men I have had a relationship for 30 years in the sport. Some of them that are here tonight I have not seen in 20 years. But I can attest firsthand to the uncommon support that this sport can give us in really tragic times. A year ago, almost to today, my wife got a hysterical phone call from Joe, who had awakened to find that his fiancée had died in her sleep. The cause of her death is not important. What is important is that the following day, it was a Sunday, Joe felt the need to abide by his commitment to speak at a youth coaches clinic at St. Mary's College. That Sunday evening, he felt a need to be with his Thomas Jefferson High School team and their parents at a fundraising dinner organized by the parents and his players. All who know me and my family know that my family represents all that is good and fun in life. At this moment, I'm kind of shocked that they haven't jeopardized my induction yet. Is it finals? Did I win the vote? Can I just go? Okay. But I could not do justice to describe the love within our family that we have for each other and to others. Many are here tonight. My brothers and sisters-in-laws, my nephews and nieces, my beautiful niece Debbie, who surprised me by flying from Florida. My daughter Jackie, who spent years moving closer to be near her mother and me, and now lives next door to us. I love her dearly, but I didn't mean that. She was once a girls lacrosse goalie and now keeps stats at all our youth games. She gave me and my wife the most precious gift in the world, my grandchildren, Zachary and Max. My son Joe, I could go on and on. The only thing I can say and think about Joe is I stand here, the proudest father on the face of the earth. My grandson Zachary, Pee-wee attacked me. In his short 10 years, he has given me a lifetime of joy and love. You share the same passion for lacrosse as your grandmother, your mother, and your uncle. I see the same intelligence. Sunshine does not adequately describe you. For those who know her, you cannot escape her smile or her hugs. Coaches, players, opposing players are not immune from her hugs and nice words. Protocol notwithstanding, the referees will get their share. You have gone from knowing nothing about this game and crying during halftime of seeing me play in a violent box lacrosse game for your first time to throwing ice cubes at opposing players over the plexiglass at my very second box lacrosse. You are the matriarch of lacrosse in Southern Maryland of the Calvert Lacrosse Club. You give it life, you give it personality, you give it love. The commissioners and smile. Bob, Jim, everyone can attest to this. You give us direction, you keep us straight. If there is such a thing as the heart and soul of our league, it's you. In truth, for me, lacrosse without you would lose its passion, its heart, its honor, its respect, its soul, its love. And to all of you tonight, if lacrosse is as passionate for you as it is for me, it provides you as it provides me great joy and satisfaction. It has given you, as it has given me, extraordinary friendships. It's a game in our blood, in our hearts. Lacrosse is extraordinary in its traditions and heritage. A game founded in ancient Indian history and religion. A game of respect and honor. A game that only the true lacrosse player, coach, referee truly understands. Principles shared by all lacrosse players, past and present, in the same brotherhood and sisterhood. And as I look around at all of you tonight, I want to say that this is your honor and that I am proud to call you my brothers and sisters. I will forever remember this night. Thank you very much.
Be honest about it. Elaine Knobloch has been with us. Here tonight to present Elaine is her husband, Tim. And, part of the fun of this job is you get to talk to everybody and find out a little bit about what's going on. So Tim, to me, is living proof that it works both ways in terms of lacrosse spouses. He's a lacrosse widower, I guess. Just somebody I love to be around who puts up with all the times and demands and sacrifices that Elaine makes. So here to introduce Elaine, her husband, Tim Knobloch.
As you can see from the program, lacrosse is her life, but it's also part of our family life. As a lacrosse family, we take vacations around the Ocean City tournament. As a lacrosse family, we learn to keep score and keep the clock at lacrosse games when they were this little. As a lacrosse family, we've helped Elaine move cages, carry equipment, learn to umpire, line fields, for the uncountable clinics, practices, games, and youth programs that she's been involved in. As a lacrosse family, we also have new rules in our house. One of them is we don't store paint to line the fields in the house. We only keep it in the basement or the garage, because when you drop a can of paint in the dining room, it tends to discharge. I can go on and on about lacrosse in our family, but one of the best parts of lacrosse is watching Elaine run down the field, cradling the ball, and hearing from the kids, "Go, Mommy, go." We're proud to introduce Elaine Knobloch as one of your 2006 Potomac Hall of Fame.
humbled, and I'm proud to know a lot of people in the crowd, and I thank you all for coming. I'd also like to congratulate everybody else who got inducted tonight. All are well deserving of the honor. When I was a freshman at the University of Delaware, yes! I received a button that said, "Make things happen." As a player at Delaware, I realized that every little bit of effort counted, whether it was that extra sprint to chase the ground ball, reaching your stick a little higher to make the block, or chasing down the opposing player. It all mattered and helped the team. I was fortunate to play with some wonderful people and win 2 national championships while I was at Delaware. I've been involved in lacrosse in the DC area for over 20 years. Initially, I just played on the local club team and then started getting involved when I volunteered to coordinate the team. Little did I know I had to go sit on the board of directors of the United States Women's Lacrosse Association just because I said I'd help the team. So as I sat on the board of directors, and I realized there are different pieces that make up the game: players, umpires, and coaches. They're all a part of the big picture and are equally important. Without one of them, the game would be impossible to play. Looking around the DC area, I discovered there were not many opportunities for girls, especially in Montgomery County. I was fortunate growing up outside of Philadelphia, being introduced to lacrosse in a public middle school where we practiced every day and had competitive games. Locally, I started to get involved with players and coaches clinics. Next came a girls' middle school league in DC and a high school and adult summer league. After getting my feet wet and meeting a few people, I started a girls' middle school group called Check It Out Lacrosse. In Montgomery County, hoping to expose girls to the sport. With more areas starting to play, the Metro Girls Lacrosse League was born. I can't tell you how fantastic it was one sunny Sunday afternoon watching over 300 girls play lacrosse and knowing that I helped make it happen. Another piece of the big picture are the umpires. Although I've never been a certified umpire, mind you, I've umpired many a scrimmage and youth game, I appreciate what they do and their commitment and contribution to the game. I started assigning umpires to high school games about 10 years ago. I currently assign umpires to over 85 high schools in the DC area and still enjoy the challenge of making sure that all games are covered on a given day. Over 700 games are played every season, and in the end, it was nice knowing I helped make it happen. Every April, the Cherry Blossom Lacrosse Festival is held. It has been a pleasure coordinating this along with John Brayhenny and the other members of the Potomac chapter. Each year, I still get a tremendous feeling of pride and excitement as I watch over 80 teams of girls and boys playing lacrosse on the National Mall with the Lincoln and Washington monuments in the background. Hearing the comments from the players, coaches, and fans makes it all worthwhile that I could help make it happen. On a final note, I'd like to thank my mom, who unfortunately is no longer with us, and my dad for letting me play sports in a time when many girls were not encouraged to play. I'd also like to thank my husband Tim, my children, Leslie, Amy, and Matt. They've allowed me to play and support the game for a long time. Lacrosse has been an important part of my life. I've met some wonderful people and had some great moments along the way. I hope that I've been able to share my passion and enthusiasm for the sport with others. The game sells itself. Kids just need the opportunity. Help make things happen by providing these opportunities. Thanks.
Presenting Steve as his assistant coach of many years, Jim Dooley. Jim first hooked up with Steve in 1991. First as the JV coach at Lake Braddock, and then moved up as the assistant coach. And then not long after that, his son Paul played for Steve, as well as his daughter Emily also played at Lake Braddock. They're twins in the class of 96, did I get that right? And I think it served him well. So let me bring up.
I'm going to take a couple of minutes. Lynn, I want to thank you for helping me write this, so now you know this is going to take a minute or two. It is an honor for me to be here this evening, to be among this great group of people, and especially those that are being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I have the pleasure of having a few minutes to speak with you about one of the honorees this evening, Steve Price. I've been hanging, like Homer said, I've been hanging out with Steve for about 15 years. It was just about this time back in 1991 when we first met. I had been coaching youth club lacrosse for Braddock Road Youth Club, 5th and 6th grade teams, for about 5 years and had some success. I had 3 successive championships in the league. And my son Paul, at that time, was a 7th grader at Lake Braddock. It's a secondary school, so they have the 7th and 8th grade there. Paul volunteered to be the manager for the varsity lacrosse team. Of course, he was still playing youth club lacrosse and thought this would be a good way to suck up to the varsity coach. Being a halfway diligent parent, I decided to introduce myself to the coach and make sure Paul wasn't going to get eaten alive by these varsity players. So I went over to the school one afternoon and Paul introduced me to Steve Price. I remember the conversation vividly. Steve says, "Your son's a good kid, he's going to have a great time. I've heard about you coaching in the youth club. Screw that, you're coming to coach JV team for me here at Lake Braddock." And I said, you know, my response, no way. I don't know a thing about coaching in a high school level. I've got a job, I was working with the police department. It's such that I don't know I can be here every day, you know, certainly before 4:30. And Steve says 4:30 is fine, we'll do a great job, go to the athletic office tomorrow and fill out the paperwork. And that's how this thing started and developed into a remarkable friendship that Steve and I share today. I coached the JV team for 3 years, and Steve said, "Screw that, you're coming up to coach with me on the varsity." Needless to say, it's been a remarkable experience, not only coaching with Steve, but having this amazing friendship develop. We come from different backgrounds. We've had some different life experiences. We have some different interests, but also share some common interests. We both played a little music in our time and find beauty in fine crafted guitars, other musical instruments, and the advances in electronic music technology. We own and ride motorcycles together and spend a lot of time in Steve's barn, where we engage in some shade tree mechanics, and Steve engages in his continued love of 50s and 60s classic cars. We share a love of family. Steve was very close to his mom and dad, Sam and Flory. And I can't go any further now without mentioning Steve's wife, Gloria. Gloria's here. His brother, Joel, Joel's wife, Susan. Their sons, Aaron, who's here, and Eric, who couldn't be here, both who played high school lacrosse and about it too much. But he's a dentist. He's a very good dentist. But I've been around Steve and, you know, at different things, and it's like, if anybody asks what I do, I'm a lacrosse coach. This is how much this means to him. And understanding that he's a dentist and a lacrosse coach, you have to gain an appreciation for what he sacrifices coaching on the high school level every year. And then there's this crazy, crazy game of lacrosse that Steve's been coaching now for 31 years. That fact alone should be enough to bring us here tonight, but it's more than that. Every coach has his own style, and Steve's no different, but there are other defining things that make up great coaches. Some of it's impossible to articulate, but I can stand here this evening without reservation and submit to you that Steve Price is a great coach. Qualities I can mention are love of the game, a love and caring for the kids that play or have played for him, respect not only for his players, but everyone who plays or contributes to this game, and he has the ability to define what is important. He and Gloria don't have children, yet this guy has been raising kids for 31 years. I met an older man in a bar some time ago in Denver, Colorado. We were talking about children and families, and he asked me a question. He said, "You know, what is your primary job as a parent?" And it's quite a question to ponder. But sometimes the hardest questions have the obvious answers. And that answer is to teach. It's been my privilege to learn from this man and to watch him work his magic and teach these kids. He teaches these kids about lacrosse, and he also teaches them about life. I think it was Vince Lombardi who once said something about the fact that winning is everything or something like that. In professional sports, this might be the case, but we're talking about high school kids. Yeah, winning is important, but it's okay to lose as long as you learn from your mistakes and apply the lessons in the future. This man has the uncanny ability to go into a locker room after a game, and he's got the game memorized. He doesn't need to look at a scorebook or notes. And in 15 years, I have never seen or heard him scream at a team about losing or blame an individual or group of players for a loss. A typical scenario would be something like, okay, the game's over, it's history. But he'll go back over it. He can pull specific plays and times out of his head. He will comment on what went well and point out what didn't. He will talk with the team about things they're going to be doing the next week, prepare for the next game, things that need to be worked on, and he'll listen to what his players have to say. I've seen him on numerous occasions counsel with players who are having academic or personal problems. He will tell them, I can't fix the problem for you, but you can, and here's what you need to do. At times, it's just a matter of him telling a kid to quit being stupid and do the right thing. But sometimes it's more involved, but it works. Last year, Steve had a 30th anniversary reunion that he put together. About 80 former players and coaches showed up. Many came from long distances, many brought their families. It was an opportunity for former players to get on the field one more time. There was a picnic afterwards, but these guys didn't come for the food or to pick up a stick. They came out of respect for the man who taught them about lacrosse, taught them a little bit about life, and because they're a part of a unique group of people that play this crazy game. What a tribute. And now this. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of presenting Steve Price.
I have to start at the beginning. I didn't know it at the time, but my coaching career really started in 1965. Some of you people weren't alive. I graduated high school. I was a pretty good football player, pretty good lacrosse player. I was recruited by a lot of schools to play football. And my mom and dad knew nothing about sports. I'm telling you, I was a running back in high school. I'd go out in motion. My mom would watch me, and after the game she'd go, "What the hell were you doing?" She had no idea what was going on. My sister would go to the game with her. I'd go motion the other way. They'd watch me. The ball was going over there. They just had no concept. But my dad read Life magazine. And in 1964, a guy by the name of Rick Forzano was written up as the offensive genius in the United States in football. And he's the new head coach at University of Connecticut, UConn. So, UConn gives me a call, and this guy from UConn comes down and tells me and my dad, "I'm going to take care of your boy. Sign here." Well, all my dad did was brag to his brothers and all his friends. My kid's going on a scholarship to University of Connecticut. I don't know what the hell for, but he's going there. And he's going because this guy, Rick Forzano, just got written up in Life magazine. That's the extent of his knowledge. So 1965, the fall of 65, I'm thinking I'm going to be the next Jim Brown. I head off to UConn, right? Got to remember there was only 3 years of eligibility that you could play in 65. So I stepped into the locker room, 1965. Here I am thinking I'm going to be all everything. There's 125 guys playing freshman football, and they're all everything that everybody else is. Okay. Well, I don't even get a jersey with a number on it. I got a blue jersey. Connecticut was blue. I got a blue jersey, and I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? Because I'm Jim Brown, you know. So, about 3 weeks of practice go by. I don't touch the ball. I'm disgusted. I call up my father, and I'm from Jersey. You gotta understand, my father was the original Godfather. And he, in his best Godfather voice, says to me, as my sister and brother will remember, "Just swear it out, everything will be all right. Don't worry about anything, you know." This was my father. Go talk to the coach. So I walk into the coach's office, and I'm complaining about this and that, and no, I don't have a jersey, and I don't play the ball, and whatever. And he looks at me and goes, "What's your name?" You're who? Hey, I'm on a scholarship, you don't even know. I'm sick, So the next day, it wasn't the next day in practice, and the freshmen back then were playing, they were the scrub team for the varsity so they could kick the crap out of the freshman team without hurting their varsity players, And this was a way that we got introduced to the football team. I wasn't playing, remember, I didn't have a jersey. So the second play from scrimmage that changed my life in sports. Forzano had a defense that nobody had before. He had something called a roving linebacker, monster man. Never used before in the whole world of football. And Army had, if you remember, some of you guys weren't born then, but Army had the lonely end. He didn't come into the huddle, whatever that was all about, who knows. If you watch the movie, he was probably drunk somewhere, I don't know. So anyway, our monster man, the freshman monster man, gets crunched and he's on the sideline dead. And so the coaches say, they need somebody to play. So I run into the game. I have never played linebacker in my life. I was a running back and a defensive back in high school. So I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? I don't know what to do. But I fill in this spot, and they run right at me, and for some God only knows reason, at the 2-yard line, bang, there's a huge collision, and the starting fullback is knocked cold. And this coach comes over to me and he goes, "What was your name?" Well, that night, that same guy that asked me what my name was, he arrives at the football dorm, we were living all together, and he hands me a jersey with a number on it, and he said, "Great hit." Well, that guy's name was Lou Holtz. Well, that was 1965, and nobody knew that Lou Holtz was going to become a legend in the world of football. But he changed my experience playing football and in sports in general. Let me give you a little perspective. UConn was not Alabama, and this was not Bear Bryant. Let's make no mistake about it. But Rick Forzano had a staff of people that were destined for unbelievable greatness. Okay? These were young men in their 20s who had tremendous impact on the game. Let me give you just a few of their names. Sam Ratigliano was the defensive backs coach. He would leave UConn and eventually become head coach of the Cleveland Browns from 78 until 84, coaching great football players like Brian Sipe, Ernest Biner, and the team known as the Cardiac Kids. He was our assistant coach at defensive backs. Dave Adolph was a defensive line coach, and he would leave UConn only to spend 21 years in the NFL as an assistant head coach, defensive coordinator for teams like the Chargers, the Raiders, and he retired from the NFL in 2000 as he was assistant head coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. Remember, this is 19. They led the entire league with sacks. He moved to the Miami Dolphins and spent many years as their defensive coordinator and was on stage with Don Five when I was coached by these great men. Rick Forzano himself left UConn to become the head coach of the Naval Academy, and Steve Price, and he speaks of you all the time. And he real quickly ripped out a piece of paper and he said, "Oh, let me write Steve a letter." And he wrote a real nice letter on Notre Dame stationery. And the bottom of the letter, it's got a P.S. "Steve, you could have played for me at Notre Dame." And that, of course, is an amazing document that is it's blown up to bit. It's a letter, but it's fresh. Gloria framed it with a couple of football pictures. It's an astounding thing. But these were the great, unbelievable people that are the frame of reference for my coaching, and I just couldn't have had better models. He'd pick me up every day. I'd go out to his house, coach his kid, have dinner. He'd drive me back, or I'd spend the evening at his house. We'd go to the school in the morning. And then it's 1972. His kid's a little older, and he comes over to me and he goes, "You play lacrosse? You're gonna coach the ball." Kid's 12 years old. 1972, there was no lacrosse. Anyway, we get in the car, he's got a big old station wagon, we drive up to Back Rack Racing, remember that name? He buys 20 sticks, 20 helmets, 20 pairs of shorts, 20 gloves, whatever it is. We have a team, it's 12-year-old kids. Well, that was really the beginning of lacrosse in Virginia. We actually played Landon School for Boys in 1972. Okay. It was an amazing thing. Well, 1973, we had a little club, and then 74, I took the team, and the kids were getting older, and I went over to Annandale Boys Club, and I got some support from them, and I renamed the team Annandale Lacrosse Club. We actually had jackets made that had a lacrosse stick on the back that said Annandale Lacrosse Club, but there was no sporting goods store that had cross sticks. So I drew a lacrosse stick, I am no artist, and I gave it to the sporting goods guy, and he put it on the back of that jacket. I still have one of those jackets, so it was an amazing thing, because today you can go into any store in the world and you can buy a lacrosse jacket and you can be a soccer player. I mean, you don't have to be a lacrosse player. So, but at the same time, Hal Brown was very familiar with a couple of families who had sons that were interested in playing lacrosse. It was Nancy and Larry McGinnis. They had two sons named Dave and Paul, and they wanted to play lacrosse, and they were driving these kids up to Baltimore to play in a club team. And another family, Mary and Charles Stewart, they had 5 sons, and their oldest one was Dennis. And by the way, the Stewart boys are here. Where are you guys? Dennis, Dennis, and Paul, and Peter, and is Patrick here? These guys are over there. Anyway, remember, this is 74. At the schools we could play were Episcopal or St. Albans and Landon. There wasn't really any high schools to play. So for the first year, my kids played on both teams. We played on my club team and the school team. In 75, I closed the team and started coaching at Lake Braddock and have been there ever since. We didn't have many referees back then. Chuck Hammer was an All-American defenseman from Virginia, and he had another friend named John Natale from New York, and they did our officiating. Last spring, as Coach Dooley was talking about, we had an alumni game. We had all these guys come back and play. And I presented an award both to the parents of the Stewart boys, Mary Stewart and Nancy McGinnis, and also to Chuck for their tremendous contribution to the development of lacrosse in Virginia. And their family, if you guys would please stand, their family was really instrumental in getting this team started. Own Triple Edge Lacrosse, which operates youth and high school leagues in the off-season and teach youngsters how to play the game, and they have tremendous impact on the sport. Lake Braddock's the only school that I've ever coached. It's my 31st season. The skill level of the players has been just fantastic. This season, in the NCAA season, there's 4 Lake Braddock graduates that are playing at 2 of the major powerhouses in the NCAA. Steve Wittenberg, who last year was an All-American at defense, is in the audience here. Steve, where are you? Another one of my guys, Jim Burrell, is a midfielder starting at Maryland. At UVA, Pat Buchanan will be starting at defense, and although he redshirted, Mark Wade, who last year was honored as a recipient of the High School to Wharton Award, will have a terrific career at goalie. And Mark's parents are in the audience right now. Mark, Greg, right there. Make no mistake about it, though, these players achieved their success because of their tremendous hard work and ethic in terms of their own desire to be great. That's really how they became great players. I have to tell you about one of my greatest thrills as a coach. My dad passed away in '96, and he was one of my best fans. He never saw me coach. My mom moved to Florida, and I had taken a team to play 4 or 5 games in Florida over spring break, and she had never seen me coach a game also. So my wife, Gloria, drives to her condo and picks up her and her sister, my aunt. Now, these women were 88 and 86 years old. And they are on the sideline at this game, and, you know, they're really getting into it, you know. But at the end of the first quarter, I had to go over to my mom and whisper in her ear, "Where are the other teams?" But, you know, it was great because, you know, they actually got to see me coach. One of the great moments. You know, we're here tonight because of our tremendous interest in this game. It's an amazing game. If you see two guys, I've said this story many, many times. If you see two guys or two girls on a beach or anywhere throwing a baseball or a basketball or football around, nothing. Nobody says a word. You see two guys with a lacrosse stick. In a couple of minutes, there's going to be two other guys over there. Hey, where'd you play? Who'd you play for? Who's your coach? How'd you do? What position were you? It's just an astounding, astounding thing. It only happens in lacrosse. Excuse me. Lacrosse has been it's defined my life. I've been coaching more than half my life. The relationships that I've developed over the years with the parents and the players continue to be some of the most really important things in my life. When I first started coaching, I was a little bit older than the high school boys. Today, I'm a little bit older than the high school boys' parents. I want to read an email that I got from one of my players just recently. And really, this is what it's all about. Coach, thanks for letting me know about the Robinson game. That was always a real brawl. Those were the days, weren't they? We kicked some ass, didn't we? We're over here in this godforsaken country. The nights are freezing and the days are long. Pretty boring most of the time. Mostly small arms fire. There's a guy here from Sewanaka that we played against in Florida. Imagine coming halfway around the damn world and meeting someone that I played lacrosse in high school against. We call him Nails because he's hard as nails. Coach, I remember when you called timeout with 2 minutes. You told me to go left and use my left. My dad still has the game ball on his desk. Lake Braddock, 9. Robinson, 8. I tell my guys just what you told me on the field at Lake Braddock. Never quit. Never quit. Never quit. Coach, I gotta go. Good luck and talk to you soon. Rob M., a.k.a. Sniper, Lake Braddock, 1988, United States Army, Special Forces, somewhere in the world. I want to close by thanking really everybody for this tremendous honor that you've given me. When Homer called me up, I was actually in my barn with a friend working on one of the cars, and you know, Homer's a ref, and he's reffing our games, and we started talking about reffing and this and that and the other thing. I was going to get off the phone, and he said, no, I'm calling you for another reason. He told me about this, and I was just completely blown away. I had no idea. This is just an absolutely amazing thing, and I really can't tell you how much I appreciate this. And it really is the truth when I meet somebody new and they come up to me and they say, well, what do you do for a living? I tell them I'm a high school coach, lacrosse coach. Thanks a lot.
Next up, Cindy Timchal. Cindy's going to be presented by Pat.
I've been up here giving an acceptance speech the first time. Last year I was here presenting a fellow official. Now I'm here presenting, strangely enough, a college coach. I don't think it's a very usual thing to have an umpire standing up here presenting a coach for induction in the Hall of Fame. I'd like to say it was because Cindy and I have this wonderful close bond as coach and umpire. But I'll tell you how it really happened. I happen to be the chair of the women's side of the Hall of Fame committee. So it was my job to call all of the inductees and let them know about their selection. Not Elaine, she was at the meeting where we voted everybody in, so she knew. But I had the privilege of calling Bill, which was a great conversation that we had. We could reconnect again. It was really special. And then I talked to Cindy. I said, Cindy, you know, want you have you inducted into the Chapter Hall of Fame. Big honor. It's a great thing. And you know, part of the deal is you have to start thinking now about who you'd like to be your presenter. You have to have somebody come and have a speech and present you. So she looked at me and, okay. I saw her a couple weeks later. Cindy, have you decided on anyone? I have to follow up. You know, who have you decided is going to be your presenter? Have you picked anybody? I get the blank stare. I see her again at the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Fame, the convention in Philadelphia at the coaches meeting. Cindy, we're really getting down to crunch time here. We have to know who your presenter is going to be. We need a name. Who's it going to be? No answer. See her again later. Cindy, if you don't pick someone, I am going to do it. And that could be really ugly. Well, here we are. I have a feeling Cindy is counting on my fairness and impartiality as an umpire. As I stand up here speaking about her. Now, I can't let the opportunity go by without giving her a couple of digs here. You know, I could stand up here and I could talk about Cindy's antics on the sidelines. Those of us who are the umpires, we love to talk about the coaches and what they do during the games. Did you see this? Cindy is known for things like waving her arms all over the place, pulling her hair, she throws her hat down on the ground, all of that to express her great pleasure with how we're calling the game. And then we can talk about Cindy and the halftime chat she has with us as officials. You've called 15 fouls against my team and only 4 fouls on the other team. You have got to do something. And I can talk about the way she acts during the game, which is really, truly unique. To watch Cindy coach a lacrosse game is to watch her. We used to have the rule where the coaches in women's lacrosse could go the entire sideline, end line to end line. And Cindy took full advantage of that and literally was running from one end of the field to the other all the time the game was going on. She had to race down here to tell the defense something. She had to race back this way to tell the attack something. Well, a couple of years back, we changed that rule, and now they can only go half the field. And it's only a vicious rumor that we did that because we were worried about Cindy's fitness level into her coaching career. But seriously, what do you say about a coach who's won 8 national championships? To win 8 is just beyond comprehension. And what do you say about somebody who's coached 70 and still counting All-Americans? There are more numbers and stats in your program, and you can read those for yourself, so there's no need for me to repeat all of that. You know, but lots of coaches have great players on their teams, and lots of coaches have the potential to win championships, but they don't. What sets someone like Cindy apart from the rest that's allowed her to reach that level? I was reading an article recently, and it was talking about things that set companies or individuals or teams apart from the rest. What puts them over the top that other teams, companies, groups don't have? You know, we hear people generally talk about talent, hard work, commitment, leadership, and certainly all of those things are an important part of any kind of winning team or program. But this article talked about some different qualities, and I thought about those, and I thought, you know, these things really do apply to someone like Cindy. They talked about boldness and power and genius and magic. Those are not really terms you think of when you think of a winning athletic team. Boldness, well, it's rather commonplace today in women's lacrosse. It was very bold at the time for Cindy to hire a guy, a man, as her assistant coach. It just wasn't done. And She didn't hire any old guy. She hired Gary Gate. We all have heard that name in this room. Talk about a bold move. There you go. Power. Maryland teams, they were always characterized by an up-tempo style of play that simply overtook opponents. It was a hallmark of Cindy's teams. Exceptional women being allowed to play and to be creative. But she knew when to step back and when to give her players the power. Genius, she's certainly known as an innovator in the women's game. Her teams have set a standard and raised the bar, and the result is what we see in today's game. Teams in Division I have had to change and raise their level of play, and the game has benefited because of it. Young kids playing saw how the Maryland kids were being coached. Be creative as an individual player, but also work together for the good of the team and the best of all. Enjoy the game and make it fun. Magic, it's an intangible thing for sure, but anyone who played for Cindy will tell you it was a magic time. Cindy certainly stepped into a wonderful situation when she was selected to be the coach who succeeded Sue Tyler at Maryland. She inherited a program and a team that was already quite successful. Intimidating to try and carry on that winning tradition? I'm sure it was. But she seized the moment, and she worked her own magic and put her own imprint on things and took an already great program to an even higher level. It's my pleasure tonight to induct Cindy Timchal into the Potomac Chapter.
First of all, it was a good pick, Pat Dillon. Not only that, but I also, I'm no dummy. I don't think the call's been quite going my way the last couple of years. No.
And I still won't.
You know, I want to thank Homer and the Potomac chapter of U.S. Lacrosse for my induction this evening. And of course, I want to thank the wonderful inductees ahead of me. It's a little intimidating getting up here after all these wonderful stories, but I'm guaranteeing you right now I'm going to change my dentist. You know what? Watching a dog whisper last night, I'm thinking calm and submissive, so I won't get all nervous here. And I also want to thank Bob Johnston. Where is he? He really does need to stand up because I'm happy that all of you had some wine and beer behind. Anyway, I remember being in front of this, not in front of this group, but sitting where you were in 2004, my first experience with Potomac Lacrosse, U.S. Lacrosse, and the wonderful, extraordinary inductees, including Pat Dillon and Sue Tyler, and Susie Gansler, I think was that year. Okay, and I just thought, you know, this would be really cool to be inducted into this Hall of Fame. I mean, the people were just extraordinary, and obviously led by a wonderful man like Homer, and to be standing up here this evening, again, is quite an honor and a privilege for me. You know, I, like Elaine, am a Pennsylvania girl, and a Havertown girl. And like many of the opportunities we had, it was a very unique, it's, you know, Havertown is like Stuckyville, or that show, I swear to God. I was very fortunate that, you know, I want to talk a little bit about my experiences as an athlete. And I competed pre-Title IX, and extraordinarily enough, I played competitive softball and field hockey at the elementary school level. You know, I had Mr. Blessings and Mr. Mott, actually male, extraordinary back, I'm not going to tell you when, they coached me. And we played all the other elementary schools, both in the fall and the spring. So I feel like I was blessed with an early competitive experience, particularly as a female. You know, the downside is when I went to Hartford High, I chose playing tennis, you know, watch Yvonne Goulagon or someone like that playing, and did not play lacrosse until I got to Westchester University. You know, and I had the extraordinary opportunity, and again, I think my path has been blessed by the many people that have touched my lives and made me the coach that I am and the person I am today. My coach was Judy Wolstenholme. Sometimes we called her Judy Westinghouse because we weren't sure if she was a part of the Westinghouse family. You know, my claim to fame, sort of like Steve, is that my players asked me, well, what was your number in college? I said I didn't have a number. You know, and what kind of stick you play with, and it was a wooden stick, and we weren't boundaries and no restraining lines, and we go on and on and on. But pretty much my claim to fame is that no one would pass me the ball because I couldn't catch. You know, so I kept saying, like, why are you looking at me and passing the other way? So I got very good at ground balls, and you know, ultimately I could catch, and I became a captain and played on US, and I think one of my personal favorites is when we did make the US squad program. Is I have this jacket, I believe I still have it today, and it is like a bowling jacket. It's shimmery, and it's white, and it's glossy, and you know, the lacrosse sticks do look like tennis rackets that are crossed, and, but we all have come a long way, and you know, as Pat said, having the opportunities I've had, you know, it's just a privilege of a lifetime. I was able to go to the University of Pennsylvania and coach under Ann Sage. She gave me a wonderful, truly awesome opportunity. I went out to Northwestern University in the middle of course, we know it's in Chicago now, but when we first got, really wasn't a landmark school till, I guess, Gary Barnett went there and did a great job with the football program, because we did not win a game, I think, when I was there, in football. In lacrosse, we did relatively well, but most people wanted to know if, you know, I really truly came to win a national championship. And, you know, to go beyond my words of what University of Maryland and the support and what we were able to accomplish was truly extraordinary. And I really credit the people, of course, I've mentioned and go beyond, like Gary Gate and the rest, but the people that really made the most difference are the athletes that really put themselves on the line on the field every single day. And what I'd like to do right now is recognize, stand up a couple of my athletes. Several play on World Cup. Go ahead, Lena. A couple of them came. You know, there are also wonderful people that surround me now, like Lori Carroll and Missy Mahard and Sandy Worth, that keep me in my place, day in and day out. But in all humbleness, what I like to say, and I know Pat was reading a book, an article, I was reading a book the other day, it really talked about, you know, it's really not money, and it's not strategies, and it's not technology, it's teamwork that puts you in the most competitive edge. I'm sure some of you have read this book, and yet it's the hardest to really accomplish. And I feel like, you know, it's been a great, wonderful team that's been behind me all the way, and looking for, you know, the honor of bringing back to the University of Maryland, and for Lenny, who played at Maryland, you know, for the men and the women, another national championship. Thank you so much.
Tristan Zaia. I guess I could call him mayor of Lacrosse, D.C. area. I'll let Dave tell you about that. Presenting Tristan tonight is David Vance, close friend, his buddy since they were 15 years old. Played lacrosse together in Montgomery County Summer League. Dave was on Tristan's first T-Bones club team back in the 1990s. Then Dave moved away, went to Vermont and Chicago, and came back in 2000. And asked Tristan if he could play for Capital again. There was a lot of hemming and hawing and talking about, well, there are a lot of call teams, league teams around. Finally gave in, and then Dave told me the greatest story. He said, well, I was playing for Capital, and was it last year, Dave? Yeah. Last year. So he's driving to the game, and he gets a phone call from Tristan. And Tristan says, "Well, I got some goalie equipment in the car for you. We need you to play goalie today. We're playing Single Source, who was the club champion the last couple of years. So here's Dave getting a chance to play in the goal. So I'll bring him up here to present Tristan and get even with him."
Well, you all know the only reason I'm still talking to Tristan is because if I hadn't done it, he probably would have. So that says a lot about Tristan. And I took my lumps that day. But I just wanted to say that I'm really proud and privileged to be up here tonight to present Tristan for this honor, because I think he really deserves it. My only regret in being up here is that Tristan's dad isn't here, because Tristan comes by his passion for sports and his tireless energy to share that passion honestly. But I do know that Mr. Zaia somewhere is watching these proceedings carefully, and he's very proud, just as he's been very proud of Tristan over the years. Mr. and Mrs. Zaia have raised a great son, and I really honestly think, and I know a lot of you who know Tristan believe it as well, that Washington is lucky to have him. As Homer said, I first met Tristan in 1981 on a summer league team. I was a 15-year-old kid. Tristan actually was not 15. He cried when he revealed his real age. But I'd just taken up the game as a freshman in high school. Tristan was about to start his senior year at Georgia Tech, where he was the captain. And he took me under his wing. And he taught me, or tried to teach me, how to compete against college players I had no business being on the field with. And it wasn't something he had to do, but he did it, and it's something I have always appreciated. He spent a lot of time with me, and eventually my head stopped spinning. And I learned a lot from him, and I appreciated it. And over the ensuing 25 years, Tristan has been my mentor, my teammate, my coach, and most importantly, my friend. There are many in this room who can say the same things, because Tristan has been an integral part of lacrosse in the Washington area. I see people here tonight from the summer league teams in the early 80s, from the Garrett's teams, the Invisible Fence teams. We're dating ourselves, I realize. From the T-Bones teams, and even from Capital Lacrosse Club. We're here because of Tristan. We're here because we know what Tristan has done for us and for the sport. And it's not just all the glamorous stuff you can read about in your programs. We're here because the rides he gave us, the sweaty summer league jerseys he washed, the sponsorships he secured, the refs he scheduled, the wake-up calls he made for those road trips to Philly and the youth clinics on weekend mornings, the emails he sent us to remind us about games. Tonight, in fact, for a lot of us, maybe the first lacrosse event that many of us have attended that we didn't get an email reminder from Tristan first. We're here because Tristan is the guy who suited up and played in the Las Vegas tournament long after he retired from playing, because there weren't enough guys around for the morning game to field the team without him. Somehow that happens in Las Vegas. He suffered a concussion in that game, but scarily I know he'd do it again if he found himself in the same situation. We're here because Tristan made it possible for many of us to continue playing the sport we love well after our college careers. Tristan has had a huge impact on lacrosse in this region, well beyond his substantial contributions to the club game. For years, he's been involved in youth programs in Virginia, Maryland, and inner city Washington. He helped found the Tewaaraton Trophy, which in just a few short years has become the sport's Heisman Trophy. And he also managed to do all this while having quite a distinguished career working for the Department of Defense in the U.S. Navy. He's been an inspiration to us, and he has encouraged us and reminded us to give back to the sport we love. Those are just a few examples, but Tristan has given so much to the sport, and so many of us owe him a debt of gratitude. So Tristan, let me end here by saying thank you.
Well, we are at the last of the inductees. Great dessert and coffee, as well as traditional post-game beers for the club guys. But wait, I would also like to mention to all of us, including our friends from Calvert County, that we're having a post-event at Bobby Van's, which is down here on 15th Street. I'm very honored for you guys to come and join us. Speaking of being last, I'm very familiar with this process of having the last name of the letter Z. I was always last to receive my grades from Sister Mary Kennedy in grade school. Actually, I'm very honored my 4th grade teacher is here this evening, and I'm sure she remembers me being in the last row, the last seat, and always farthest away to discipline. I was always the last to be called out by the PE instructor to climb that endless rope, last out of the pool and swimming class, last to get my diplomas and graduations, and of course, always the last at the counter at the DMV. But being last has its merits, also especially this evening, as I was able to listen about my fellow Hall of Fame inductees and learn of all the great things they have accomplished for the sport we all have a passion for and love. Coach Timchal, what an amazing career you've had at Maryland University. And for those of you that don't know, Coach Timchal developed and coached Jen Adams, the Towardson Trophy first inaugural winner in 2001. And by the way, the next Towardson Trophy event takes place on June 1st at the National Geographic. It would be great if you all could attend. Sorry for the quick plug, but Liz Terry, our director, made me do this. Leonard, Stephen, and William, thanks also for the great things that you've done to grow the game in your respective areas. I deeply appreciate your time and effort. And of course, there's Elaine Knobloch, the true diva of our women's game in Washington, D.C. From reffing to assigning refs, to coaching at all levels, volunteering, and to running the Ladies Capital Lacrosse Club, which is one of the best women's lacrosse teams in the nation, I might add. She truly represents what passion for the game is all about. Thank you and your family for the true dedication to the sport. I would also like to thank the Aschenbach family and my lovely girlfriend Sarah for being here this evening. I met Sarah a year ago this evening at the last Hall of Fame, and it's been an amazing year. She's a top coach in the area here in high school. I've learned a lot about the women's game watching her coach. Thank God you're instituting boundaries, though, this year. I would like to thank the Potomac Lacrosse chapter for this incredible honor. I am deeply humbled by this recognition to be included with such a distinguished group of people. When I look back at my involvement with the game since the late 70s, yes, back when the earth was still cooling, I recall a passion I have for the game that developed when I was a little guy, the size of many campers and youth groups that we do clinics for today. I always look forward to watching ABC Wild World of Sports with my dad, especially when they televised several NCAA lacrosse championships. Back then, it always seemed to be John Hopkins and some other team. I'm sure Homer was a very happy guy then as he is now, and Coach Casalino, I know there were some Maryland games there too. But I remember how exciting those games were, and could only hope that one day the game could be that popular here in the DC area. There were several high school teams then, as William had mentioned, and a few men's and women's club teams, but nothing at the level that we have today. After picking up the sport at the college and post-college level, I noticed a need for a strong growth of the game here, and decided it was very important for many of the club teams players that I've had to give back to the sport. I was motivated even more by Tom Shekels, who I consider the Johnny Appleseed of Washington area lacrosse, who helped, with many others, grow the big solid tree of the game we have today. Getting involved with the game and planting those new seeds of lacrosse from that tree all over the area was a very easy task. I've had over 170 different players that I've either played with or coached at the Capital Lacrosse Club, and all have either coached youth, high school, or at the college level, and all have participated in the various clinics the Capital has been involved with. It's been a marvelous experience meeting all the dedicated players I've played and coached with and become friends with for life. I have been fortunate that whatever lacrosse organization I was involved with, whether it was the youth level, junior varsity, or varsity, there were always parents there that were willing to go the extra mile to help their kids become better players and better kids off the field. Many of those parents and many club players I know are here this evening, and I want to let them know how much I appreciate their dedication and unending participation in the game and support they've given both on and off the field. I truly have enjoyed every minute of my involvement with the game, and I'm especially very happy to see the young men I coached at youth have excelled both in high school and now are in the big leagues in college doing the same. I can only thank my dad for always being there for me and coaching me throughout my life, and continue to be a motivating factor for my participation in the game we all love. Unfortunately, as Dave mentioned, my dad could not be here this evening to see me receive this special honor, but I know he would have been proud of me. I recall an event a few years back when I convinced a friend of mine that he should get both his sons involved in the game. I took his sons to a few very exciting Georgetown games and a couple Capital games, and introduced them to a few of our Capital guys, and before you know it, I'm getting calls from him every weekend, yelling at me furiously on the phone, asking me if I'd realized what I had done. Since every weekend, he has now taken up lacrosse with his kids. God, I love it when I get those parents mad at me like that. My friend and his family are in Santa Barbara now, and I'm very happy to tell you they've recently started a new high school team so their sons can continue to play the game they love. By the way, there are a few of my high school buddies here in the crowd this evening, and all their kids are getting close to start playing the game. And I just want to let them know I will make sure that happens. A few years ago, I was approached by several folks to start up a foundation that recognized top players of the game. I knew this would be a tough thing to accomplish, and facing the award here in DC. But as we all know, the Tord Trophy is alive and well and will continue to grow the game at the national level. I have to thank all the folks that have done an amazing job in making this foundation a true tradition of excellence for the game. I'm also involved with Winners Lacrosse, which provides lacrosse opportunities for those that do not have the opportunities we have, and provides lacrosse experiences that normally would not be available. This is another great group of people that are dedicated to sport and excel in the game. I guess it comes down to taking the time for something you have a passion for and helping grow the sport. You can do this at any age level and at any level of participation, and be assured that whatever level of effort you put in will get results many times over. Thanks again to all of you that have come out this evening to honor us with this accolade. But since I have the last word here this evening, I want to thank all of you for what each of you have done for the game here, and encourage you to continue your involvement for all the future young folks that want to pick up a stick, want to run on that field, and want to score a goal for their teammates. Thank you.